Welcome to the Schmoopydady streaming experience. I'm your host, as per usual, Schmoopydady. In case it's the first time you've watched one of these meta reports, I'm a monthly Hearthstone Wild Legend player who typically hits Legend near the first of the month, and after that I goof off, and when I goof off, I play your decks. But I also do these meta reports that kind of look at things that are in Wild, and my own proclivities, if I'm playing on my own, is to usually play something a little hipster, a little bit off meta. I often enjoy meta decks. I like winning, but I also like winning with something that's a little bit, asymmetrical with what my opponent is trying to do. So while I'm going to look at some of the best decks in Wild, what I'm also going to do is take a look at some of the stuff that's sort of popping up that is totally playable that I would consider off meta. One of the fun things about this expansion, about this meta, is it's been slowly developing. We had that huge nerf to Holy Wrath, and we had the huge nerf to Discard Warlock. And that really opened up the meta and allowed for a lot more variety to sort of creep into play and allow different types of aggro to pop up, allow for some slower decks that were having some trouble outpacing either Holy Wrath or outpacing Disco. I have a little bit more room to breathe, and I've got 20 decks to showcase tonight. A lot of them are stuff that about half of them are just like gold-plated good decks will take you to Legend, and then some other stuff that feels either underplayed, or quietly under the radar is very, very, very good. And I'm even leaving off some stuff. For example, it's hard for me to include Libram Paladin on every single meta report if, number one, I don't think it's much better than like a low tier 2, tier 3 type deck, but also, in my mind, Libram Paladin has gotten 0 new cards in the new expansion. So am I just going to have Libram Paladin up there for every single meta report? Probably not. What about Imbue Mage? I haven't really seen anybody really fully refine Imbue Mage. I really liked QB's take on the list when it was new with Frost Novas and Little Varden, and now, honestly, looking at it, there's probably a couple other cards we could look at to cut or replace and put in something like Bob for another additional board freeze. I like the idea, the approach in Imbue Mage of just sort of like holding up the opponent's board and then throwing down the rec list to kind of like blow them out. But like, no one's really, people are all sort of playing the same Imbue Mage list, and again, I don't think it's that good of a deck. It's sort of a noob killer. So the decks that I have here that are ones that I know to be good, while also are a little bit more interesting for me to cover. NAZMANI Priest, I think, is still up there with one of the best decks in the game. I'm sticking with Gamer Moment's list. If you watched the last meta report, I listed off all of Gamer Moment's statistics on how early they found wins with this deck. Mostly it was like turn 4, turn 5, turn 5, turn 6. But as early as turn 3 is definitely possible. And I like the lists that have the hunter component, that have the extra bird watching as extra ways to go find your NAZMANI so that you're prepared to pop off. There are definitely some flexes. What can you do? Palm reading either as a 2 of or a 1 of is fine. I think the 4 mana draw 2 spell looks like the not good whenever we look at HS Guru stats. So what are you going to do? I'm not saying too much more about NAZMANI Priest that already been said. Very good deck. Many consider it the best deck in the format. Dungar Druid is an excellent, I think, second best deck. I've seen a lot of people try to learn Dungar Druid and realize it's really hard and having some problems with it. It takes a lot of sequencing. It takes a lot of practice. I screw it up regularly when I play it. I think that's up there with one of the conversation of best decks. This has a whole lot more room to breathe with aggro taking a step back. One of the decks that pops up frequently on HS Guru as looking like one of the best decks in the format consistently that is underplayed is Corbett's Pirate DH. Pirate DH... this is the crazy part. I look at this list and there's no Demon Render Kurtrus, and I'm like, but my hero card. When you look at the data on HS Guru though, and that's what Corbett did probably when he threw this list together, is He cut the hero card because it looks like it's one of the worst cards in the deck. It does jam up Magnifying Glaive very early. Well, also, while it provides for a ton of late game, if Pirate DH is kind of like hanging in there for the late game, it's not doing well against a lot of the faster stuff like NAZMANI, like Aggro, like Astral Communion that are floating around. And so we're going for a little bit of a lower to the ground build with this take. Not only that, it looks like one of the best cards in Pirate DH is Brain Masseuse. So if you're going to be, pushing damage early and you're going to be taking this approach where you're low to the ground and you don't like Demon Render Kurtrus and Brain Masseuse is the best card in the deck, or one of the best cards in the deck, I guess you got to run Arana. Strangely enough, South Sea Captains look really, really, really good statistically on HS Guru. I've always liked South Sea Captains in Pirate. DH, I'm glad to see that feeling is somewhat backed up by this. I would rather run South Sea Captain. I was running South Sea Captain before, after they nerfed Ziliax, because Ziliax felt like ass after that, and you couldn't convince me that South Sea Captain wasn't better than Ziliax. Ziliax would cost 4 after a Sigil of Skydiving. South Sea Captain always costs 3, so I don't know, food for thought. But looking a little bit more low to the ground on the Pirate DH front, you can apply a lot of pressure, and you've got mana burn that can kind of time skip your opponent depending on what deck they are. Face Warlock, I have played a ton of. I played this exact list to rank 3 Legend on Asia. I'm going to guess that my win rate on stream, I was 16 and 15. Like, it's an 11x climb. It's a very streaky deck. You win, you win, you win, you lose, you lose, you lose, you win, you lose, you win, you lose, you win, you lose, you lose 2, you win 3. I would say my overall record was probably around 55, 60%. I did a fair chunk of that climb, basically folding laundry without a deck tracker. I wasn't keeping a record. I was just like, let me just jam the games. But I was definitely positive. I was clicking along pretty well. The flex cards kind of look like Gem Tosser, Fellwing, and Devious Coyote. I think the Smothering Starfish is still too good in the meta to get rid of entirely, and everything else feels pretty good to me. The Ashen Elementals feel fantastic against anything that wants to attempt to draw cards. I have seen decks cut the Fellwings for Cult Neophytes. I have seen decks try... there was a deck that hit rank 1 recently that was running 2 Cult Neophytes, I think in the Fellwing slot, which I thought was really interesting. I think the Trogs and the Fellwings pair very nicely together. The Devious Coyote has felt like either the nuts or the biggest brick in my deck. And I think Neophytes as a sort of tech option to slow down the Astral Communion turn or the NAZMANI Priest turn, depending on whether or not those are decks that you see often enough that you worry about them. I think that's an encouraging option. I think that's an interesting option. And we don't have a lot of good 2 plays. We're usually either trying to play 2 1s on 2, or tap on 2, or coin a 3 on 2. So having a solid 2 where you're on the play, your opponent has the coin, you don't want them using the coin, rip a Neophyte on 2, sounds good to me. Consider that when you're looking at the face lock list. Again, like the Devious Coyote, when you're coining a Tachyon Barrage and it all goes face and you can drop 2 Fellwings and a Coyote on 1, when the nuts happens, it's the nuts. How often it happens, maybe not enough to necessarily allow for the Coyote to still exist in the list. But I was trying it, didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it either. I brought this deck to rank 67 Legend on Asia and towards the end of last month. And yeah, I mean, this deck's a lot of fun. It is powerful. I think it is less powerful than I expected. I think it definitely has some bad matchups. I think places where people are looking to improve it are they're looking to see if there's like one more big spell that we can pair with Saladrisil so that we have the Trickster payoff. I still think it's a very good deck. I still think it is up there with one of the best aggro decks in the format. It's got crazy burst. It can stick around for a long time. It can kind of sneak up on you with a massive Wind Fury charger out of nowhere to knock your opponent out. It can just sort of struggle sometimes into let's say like something like NAZMANI Priest if they start super fast and you don't quite get enough aggression down, enough damage down to sort of push the issue. But really good deck. I really enjoy it. I think the second tricky thing you got to worry about is how often do you swing the Kingslayers? There's some decks that you don't want them drawing their legend cards, and there's some decks where you absolutely know for a fact that they have no legend cards, and you can safely draw the King Lane and then rip Garona right behind it. It's almost worth it just to send King Lane into their deck, just because sometimes he goofs up a deck like Barnes Druid or something like that. So, which I'm not. Again, Barnes Druid's one of the decks that I'm not including in this meta report necessarily. Not because it's not like a viable fine deck that you could play to legend, just more because it's like not super interesting to me. Plus 125 Odin. This deck is real. I said towards the end of last meta report, I included it as the last deck, and I was like, I don't know. I haven't played this yet. It seems kind of good. It looks pretty real. It's real enough that we're not entirely sure if Odin is the best way to go about finishing off the deck, finishing off the list. Maybe Odin Ignis is not the nuts. Maybe it's something like Line Cook and the Value Quest. Maybe it's something like, I don't know, that everybody's trying everything. Maybe we throw Boom Boss in here. People are attempting to find what's the nuts, what is the right win condition for this. I will mention that it might be actually correct to run Dead Man's Hand if you're doing the Odin version, because despite it looking like there's a lot of ways for you to gain armor and find lethal post Odin, really the main parts of your fuel are 2 Unleash the Crocolists and a Safety Goggles, and hopefully a Wind Fury Weapon off of Ignis, or a second Dredge Ceaseless Expanse for 125 armor to go face. There's actually not as much fuel or value as it looks, so you can gain a ton of armor and then be dead in the water and have nothing to do. Which is where I've seen some interesting things, like people are trying Line Cooks, that you have, not infinite, but you have a lot of... a lot of 3-mana 2/4 taunts that just sort of grind that down the opponent because, they have to waste value, have to waste cards to get into you. Throwing down a Boom Boss, again, blowing up the opponent's resources, getting them to fatigue sooner. You can't quite knock them out anyway, so you have to play the long game. It's interesting. It's interesting. This archetype is definitely getting refined. I do think the 30 version that goes for the early Ceaseless Expanse scam is very viable, as long as you keep the tribes low. The From the Depths, All You Can Eat, Quality Assurance, Polkelt, Sphere, Ceaseless package, it looks really good. Looks really, really good, really, really solid. And with stuff like For Glory and Unleash the Crocs and Shield Shatter, the whole removal package, that stuff all looks solid. That all looks core. It just comes down to, okay, how do we win with this deck now? I think you can do great with this deck now, but people are still experimenting, and I don't think we have found the perfect mix yet. Brock's DH is Brock's DH. Again, I think we don't mix the two. Actually, Fatigue DH still looks like, statistically, like it's looking a little bit of a higher win rate than Brock's DH right now. It's almost like I'm literally watching it play out where if you want to be more consistent into aggro, play this version. If you want to be more consistent into slot piles and Reno decks and slower decks, do the Arana version. And the Arana version basically runs 0 new cards. Your old list works great. Awesome. You want to run new cards, you play this list. We do not run Zephrys the Great. That is one of the worst cards in the deck. It sucks. Wind Fury Brox is like almost never relevant, and Zeph is a brick in your goddamn hand until that exact situation comes up. In 99% of games, that situation is not going to come up. Get rid of it. Projectionist, it sucks. Get rid of it. Nice clean list. Tries to win with Brutes, no bricks, Brutes and Mana Burn and Wallopers, and go to town. Okay. NHL's Hostage Mage. This is what he's playing now. It's slightly updated from the list that we did our guide on. He's cut the Freezing Pots, and we've got Boom Pistol Bully, and we've got, what was the other thing? Oh, Xavius. Boom Pistol Bully and Xavius in the 2 positions where for a hot minute he was running Freezing Pots. Hostage Mage is Hostage Mage. Hostage Mage actually looks like it's a little bit down right now. Its win rate's not good. Burnlock is not a good matchup for Hostage Mage. Like, Hostage Mage can win, but Burnlock, we run the Ashen Elementals. We kind of get under them pretty quickly. We don't care if our board gets frozen because we have so much damage from hand. It's just basically, let's play around Solid Alibi the best we can. Let's play around Objection as best we can. Let's pop the Ice Block with Ashen Elemental, and you die. Yay! You might say, but Schmoopy, you're running nerfed cards. This is still one of the best anti-aggro cards you could possibly run, and guess what? You could swing it twice. You could even swing it face, and you're still going to get a coin out of it. Getting a coin is so huge, and it's really good into aggro. It seems fine to me. All right, last but not least of the established good stuff, I give you Corb's Astral Communion Druid. I have my version of Astral Communion Druid that I enjoy, that I prefer. You'll notice that Corbett has gone with Invigorate over Trail Mix. He cut Guff, which I said makes sense. If you're cutting Guff, then not having Trail Mix makes a lot of sense because Trail Mix is really good to boost into Guff, but now that's one fewer target to boost into, so we might as well go with the Invigorate. Just to be a little bit more conservative. Assembly Bots, Ultimate Infestation looks really good on HS Guru. This list looks very similar to what I'm running. We're not running Yogg. We're running a little bit more pressure. We're going and getting them. We are not doing an ETC. We are not doing a Tog Azalina. Just go beat up the opponent. Don't, like, replace your hand with shit cards that do nothing for you but make sense for the opponent and their deck. Like, just no Nerubian Unravelers that mean not a fucking thing when they drop you Sail and all their spells cost 1 anyway. Just go beat them up, okay? That's the best way to enjoy Astral Communion, but at the same time, if you want to have a little bit of fun, you can always throw in those shitty cards if you really feel like it. Okay. The next section. This is the section of decks of stuff that is popping up that looks really, really, really good. Starting with Treant Druid. It wasn't that long ago that somebody on a meta report, I want to say it was like over a month ago, somebody messaged, I can't believe Treant Druid isn't on this list. And when I looked, there was like a sample size of like 200 games for Treant Druid. Since then, we're over 1,000 now for this expansion alone. Wave Shaping was a great addition to the deck, and this is my viewer Tay's list. She plays the deck up around, you know, top 10, top 100, sometimes top 5 on EU, and I know others have played this list and enjoyed it and love it. It's very all-in. You can sort of pace out your threats, but mostly you're just kind of throwing your hand on the table and saying, all right, what you got? Very high risk, high reward type deck. I will say, if you're looking for substitutions, Floop is really good in the list right now because Floop, again, transforms into the last minion you played, regardless of if he was in your hand or not when you played it. So while this is in your hand, this is a 3/4 copy of the last minion you played. So if you played a Treant, he is now a 4-mana 3/4 Treant. If you played an Umbral Owl, he is now a 0-mana 3/4 Umbral Owl. If you played a Blood Treant, he is now a steal 4 health from you, 3-mana 4/3 Blood Treant, which actually isn't that bad. If you don't have Floop, cut him for a second Mark of the Lotus. I think that's a good budget kind of like, you know, inclusion. If you're just like, this is what I want to run, I don't have Floop, I'm just going to make a second Mark of the Lotus. Very effective list. It has a high win rate on HS Guru. It has a really quick climb rate where it keeps going up, 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 up. You can get a lot of ranks very quickly. I would sort of say that it's going to be great against like NAZMANI and great against Astral Communion Druid because they just sort of sit there and don't deal with the early threats. You can kind of vomit your hand and apply a lot of pressure and hopefully find lethal before they do their big swing turn. Another deck that is popping up, low sample size, very high win rate. I'm including Pur's rank 1 Warsong Warrior. The combo is we, through some combination of mana cheat, play Warsong Commander, Risky Skipper, Frothing Berserker. We then copy the Frothing Berserker with a Bloodsworn Mercenary, and we go face with 2 Frothing Berserkers, our risky skipper and our Bloodsworn mercenary. Now, one sort of key thing to remember about this combo, again, ideally you hopefully hit some combo pieces off of From the Depths, or you use To the Front to make them cost 1. You need the opponents in that combination to have at least 2 minions in order to get enough damage to deal lethal in that situation. What gives your opponent 2 minions? Unleash the Crocolisk. So this deck has gotten a big boost, a huge boost in Pattern of Play buff, just from one card in the Unleash the Crocolisk. This also helps make Shield Shatter worth running now. Frozen Buckler or Safety Goggles was a little too expensive for this list, but 1 mana board clear is like chef's kiss, especially since we're running For the Glory anyway, which helps us cycle even harder than we were before. We're also running Roaring Applause, which, holy cow, that can really cycle. I think some of the flex in this list might be, I've heard some people cutting an Eternium Rover for a second To the Front. I've also heard of some people turning Eternium Rovers into target dummies to make them play nicer with Roaring Applause. I think all of that is fine. I think all of that's on the fringe. But just this deck in general is up there win rate wise as possibly being one of the best in the format. We've got the deck that I took to Legend. I hit Legend with this on NA yesterday. This is Frog Shaman. I've talked about this deck before. It's mostly a tempo deck to start. Like, it's a combo deck, but it's mostly trying to win with tempo to start. You make a big board of buffed volcanic bursters or buffed frogs. Where are you? There, pop-up book frogs, and you can either pop off with a Flash of Lightning into Frog the next turn, or get Frog and Radiance of Ashara down in the same turn. That's also another way that you could set up your pop-off. You pop off, you make a big board, and you're like, hey, what are you going to do about it? I've also cleared your board with Clash of Thunder, and I've got a bunch of big butts out, so Soul Barrage doesn't bother me. Once you do that, if your opponent manages to clear that, you still have the Command the Elements quest line where you can then get your Brucon down and everything is all doubled up and you can blow them away with Bioluminescence. Somewhere in there, if you need a third win condition, Farseer Woe is it. I love this card. I know this might be in there as like the Dustbait card. You might be like, well, Schmoopy, when do I use this thing? Just throw it out there. Just throw it out there. The only time I wouldn't throw it out there is if you feel like popping off with Spirit of the Frog the next turn. I do find the Discover animations for Farseer Woe to be a little bit detrimental and a little bit slow, and it has made me miss lethal in the past. But it's not a card your opponent can ignore. So if you're in a scenario where you don't quite have a board clear and your opponent doesn't quite have lethal, you just throw out Farseer Woe and you're like, all right, dude, do something about this. And if they don't do anything about it, you could probably find healing, you could probably find removal, you could probably find a board clear. You could probably buy time to either follow up with a Golganeth to super stabilize, or if they do kill it, you probably have bought enough time to find your frog turn. This deck is also running Devolve and Elemental Destruction, which feel really good into people who are still playing Discard Warlock, which is still a playable deck, by the way. It's just much slower. Great cards into Burnlock, great cards into Nazmani Priest if they don't murder you, great cards into Big Shaman. They don't like to see the Devolve. That usually makes a threat that's less threatening than a Hyper Wind Fury 416. You get the idea. I like this deck a lot. If you want to see footage of me playing this deck, I'm going to be putting out how I hit Legend in the coming days. Good deck. Like this deck. Feels underplayed for how well I did. I went 18-5. I went 18-5 with this deck at 10x early Legend. So like mopping up aggro, doing fine into slot piles. Really the thing that you worry about are faster combo decks, and you can kind of try to win those matchups by going in on an early Volcanic Burster Storm's Wrath turn. Basically make like an early board of like tokens. Play like a token aggro deck and see if you can get there. It's hard, but it can happen. Starting to get into some of the weirder stuff. We've got Champions Druid, which consistently has a win rate lower than Dungar Druid, but it's not an insignificant win rate. This is the Champions Druid that Hijo likes to play. So Barnes can go get either A&R or can get Ysayle. We can Shatter Reflections the A&R, or we can Shatter Reflections the Ysayle. And with Champions of Azeroth, we are always, always, always picking Alliance, trying to either get Tony, which is usually lethal if we have Ysayle and Sleep Under the Stars, Antonidas, or we're trying to get Velen so that our burn spells are, twice as damaging. If, let's say, we low roll and we happen to get a Tyrion, oh well, I guess we're going to have to win with either Shattered A&R loops, or we're going to have to win with Tempo. This deck can pop off. It is only 30 cards, which is interesting. And you know what? Like, Barnes into A&R against an aggro deck, that's not really a low roll, is it? You get to Reno and you're ahead on Tempo. So that's interesting. Highlander Big Spell Mage. Again, we're still deep in the weeds. I picked this list off of HS Guru. I'm sorry, I have to do this, chat. It's compulsion. I picked this list off of HS Guru. I didn't see anything in here that I totally, completely hated. If you've been paying attention to my content, I have sung the praises of this deck many a time. I'm not going to say that I 100% agree with every card in this deck, but you know what? It looks pretty freaking good to me. We're not taking anybody hostage. But what we are doing is sending a pile of damage at your face every turn at some point once we've started getting the orb going. Once the orb is going, it's basically over. Like, you're eating a Sunset Volley, a Tsunami, a Mask of Cthulhu, and also recasting... Where are you? Probably recasting Arcane Brilliance and getting another copy of Orb and those spells back. So it's just a pile of damage. I lost to this deck several times as Burn Warlock, whereas the more hostagey, slower Reno variants were my food. This one was creating swing turn after swing turn and beating me up, and I couldn't keep pace with it. So this is very playable. This is very strong right now. We've got QB's Quest Mage. Yes, Open the Waygate is not dead. How do we mulligan? We mulligan the same way we've always mulliganed. Look for a Sorcerer's Apprentice. Look for a Magister's Apprentice. Look for the cheap burn spells so that you can draw cards early. And then when you have enough mana, pop off with Sorcerer's Apprentice into Magister's Apprentice into try to complete the quest and do a giant swing turn all in one turn. What's nice and upgrades that this deck has gotten is we've never really fully liked and embraced Arcane Intellect. It kind of sucks. Altar of Time has some really nutty hits, and when you've got Sorcerer's Apprentice and Magister's Apprentice down, the things that cost 2 less now cost 4 less. And so there's a lot of 4-cost options that are nutty, like Pot or Echo of Medivh, and or a couple of other things that you can find that are just really sick options for this deck that help push it to the next level. Obviously, Nightmare Lord Xavius can go find the right copy of the girl that you're missing. And Arcane Giants and Conjurer's Calling are the way that we produce enough lethal damage that we can win with Open the Waygate and Time Warp. A little bit APM intensive, but good. Sulthrace Warrior has been looking better and better. I know there's a Chinese list that just hit rank 1, but I have to, instead of showcase that list, I find this list to be incredibly clean from Oddlaw early in the expansion. He sent this to me. I played it. I loved it. It's another deck that's using Unleash the Crocolisk and sort of flipping the downside on your opponent. What does this deck want? This deck wants to play Punch card with Sulthrace up. Sulthrace reads, Overkill, you may attack again. So if you give Sulthrace Cleave and you Punch card and you swing and you kill 3 minions, you get an extra swing for each overkill that you committed. So if you overkilled 3 minions, you get 3 extra swings. It just gets a little bit silly. You throw in a couple of Burning Hearts, and the one of Heroic Strike is just, again, a little bit of extra reach. When you have enough swings and you have enough damage, you just start swinging at the opponent's face and they explode. The Chinese version is using, like, Starfish, which might be okay. We don't run a ton of tribes in here, so I don't know if you want to, like, cut a Dry Whisker Armor for the starfish, or if you want to cut like a needle rock totem. I don't know. The needle rock totem is draw, so I don't really like cutting those. Probably the dry whisker armorer, if anything. It's probably one of the weaker cards in the list. I would cut the heroic strike, but I think that the deck does need some reach, so my instinct tells me that this is probably one of the flex spots. You could throw in a starfish. You could have a good time. And then Egg Warlock, if they make one of those big old boards, you can armor up so that you can ignore the 20/20, and you could starfish the board so that you got plenty of ammo for your Soul Thrace combo, and you do your Soul Thrace combo, and they die, and you laugh. Ha ha. Aura Paladin. This is a deck that hit rank 1 on China, Aura Paladin. I'm not sold on the Deputization Aura, but I tell you what, when there's an Aura Christmas tree up, it is so annoying. Geblin, this is a real card, and believe it or not, it is a mech. So if you get it at 6 mana off of Timeline Accelerator, and and you do your Mysterious Challenger turn into your Geblin turn, your opponent's not doing a whole lot of anything for a long, long time, which buys you time to basically win the game with Uther of the Eben Blade. But I'm starting to see versions of this card that don't even run Uther and just top out at Reno Lone Ranger and just try to win with tempo and try to win with board presence. And, you know, you just goof around the secrets and you go from there. This deck, I believe, is a real deck. We're still waiting for some refinement. It's taking some time because it's a new archetype. But it is cool and it is playable. And you'll notice it's lower down on my list because of, you know, my confidence in it. You might say, Schmoopydady, why are you always posting decks that have, like, you know, why are you always posting wins with Womper Druid? I keep winning with it. So how do we play this deck? Well, we mulligan for Death Blossom Womper and Hedge Maze, and through some combination of ramp or coins or whatever, you get the Womper down and you get the Hedge Maze down and you trigger the Death Rattle on the Womper. The Womper should pull Thunderbringer, which is the only Death Rattle in the deck, and the Thunderbringer Death Rattle pulls either an Elemental and a Beast. So you can pull an Ultra Gigasaur, or you could pull a Neptulon, or you could pull a Loctalar, or you could pull a Storm Drake, or you can pull a Stargrazer, right? And you get these, like, basically these big threats early. If for whatever reason they ever nerf Astral Communion, be it through popularity, or be it through pattern of play, or be it through play rate, or whatever, I think this is the thing that's sort of waiting in the wings as like a consistent, big, stupid, Timmy goof-off deck. The one Battlegrounds Battlemaster makes sense because if we're popping off on turn 5 and we have big idiots down that don't have Wind Fury, Battlemaster sort of closes out and makes sure that they do have Wind Fury. I would suggest trying this deck if you have the cards. It's low down on the list for a reason. I can't say with confidence that you won't brick games. I can't say with confidence that you won't get aggro down sometimes, but I win a lot with this deck when I play this deck, so either I'm high rolling out of my mind, or it's just, you know, and it's not that good, or there's something there. A deck that I am realizing that I haven't included, that if you don't mind me, we even talked about this today. Another deck that is popping up a lot, statistically, when we look at Wild, is Call to Arms Paladin. Extra large Call to Arms Paladin. The flex spots now are Horn of the Windlord, if you're not seeing enough big stuff. Rat is sort of a flex spot. Good friend of the stream, Jacques Skeiner, gave me some tips on what exactly is at flex and what people are playing, and I can include those in the description, but I don't remember them off the top of my head, and I don't want to waste people's time searching through Discord trying to reread them. But he said he really likes the new location in the list right now. The Ursine Mauls are always finding my Prismatic Beam. You can showdown Beam against aggro, and then you obviously want Call to Arms when you are the beatdown, and you use taxing effects and Divine Shields and Crusader's Aura to close out the game. We've played this deck in the past. We've done a whole guide on this deck. It's been nerfed, so the pattern of play changes a little bit, but doesn't change that much. So if you want to see me and Filterfo play this deck, I would recommend this. This is very much showing up as small sample size, high win rate. So this sort of belongs. I probably would have put this like right below Treant Druid as far as things that I have confidence in, but it's up there. But I had to remember that before I let it go. Okay, Naga DH. Here's the thing. Extremely cute thing we can do now in Naga DH. The portals are fuel for Blind Eye Sharpshooter. The adaptive amalgams are fuel for Blind Eye Sharpshooter. Through Fell and Flames not only is fuel for Blind Eye Sharpshooter, but gives the adaptive amalgams rush so that when they hit the board, they can trade into a minion that is still there, cycle back into the deck, and now you have more fuel for the Blind Eye Sharpshooter. So if you can get 2 amalgams with rush and just keep going and going and going and going and infinitely cycle, and you're trading into portals, that's the part of this deck that makes it look really interesting and really cool. It's got a high win rate for a small sample size. I've tried it today. It feels awful into aggro. And every time I've tried it on stream, it feels bad, but I've also had some highlight games where it's like you just blow somebody up on turn 4. Especially if you manage to, let's say you're up against an Astral Communion Druid and you manage to stick a sock puppet. Your attacks can get very, very large very, very quickly. And basically the sock puppet sticking means that not only are you putting in Blind-Eyed Sharpshooter damage, but you're also functionally giving your hero Wind Fury. So cool deck, hipster deck. I love the tech of like, ooh, let me red card a Blind-Eyed Sharpshooter, and when it pops out, I'll have the fuel to pop off. That's a cool line. I haven't gotten to take it yet. The original list that I grabbed was from Mr. Boogerworm, but he had Zephyrus in where the quick pick goes. Zephyrus in literally every questline DH deck looks like the worst card in the deck. It looks so bad that we shouldn't be playing it anymore. The quick pick lets me draw, lets me set up for my combo turn, so I'm running quick pick instead of Zephyrus. I'm running a playable card instead of an unplayable one. Last but not least, I played this last month, at the end of last month, Pyramid Heads, Even Reno Rainbow Death Knight. I'm having a lot of fun playing this card, playing this deck. There's a couple of cards that I think are a little bit suspect. I'm not a big fan of Sylvanas the Accused. I'm not a big fan of Reska. I've been on record as to why I think Reska's not very good. We're just not killing enough things. When Reska comes down, the things that we're stealing are just not as high impact as they were in Standard. Standard had a lot of Titans. Standard had a lot of Colossals. Standard had big starships. Standard had big things that you wanted to grab. Maybe not Colossals. I don't know. My memory on these things is a little bit hazy, but definitely Titans and starships. Big minions that swung the game. We really don't do that with Reska anymore. I don't think it's very good. Reska doesn't cost 0 mana. Reska costs like 7 or 6 mana until you finally reach a stage where it's just like, oh, it's turn 9. My Reska's 0 finally. It's like, come on, man, come on. But no, fun deck, awesome deck, good cook. If you're looking for a Death Knight that's running Husk, look, it's running Husk. And Husk has synergy with Climactic Necrotic Explosion. A lot of these cards are all using corpses, but they're using corpses in smart ways that buy more time to eventually blow the opponent out with Climactic Necrotic Explosion. And it's Reno. It's just so cool. All right, so more than 20 decks, that's 21 decks that you can attempt to play in the Wild format, a very diverse format right now. That's not even going through the basic bitch stuff of like, oh, I could play Imbue Mage. Oh, I could play, Reno Priest. Oh, I could play Libram Paladin. Oh, I could play Barnes Druid. Like, there's just so many playable decks right now, and so many really good decks, possibly even tier 1 decks, that are sort of floating under the radar that are not being played at the as high a rate as maybe they should. I think it's very exciting. I think I'm having a ton of fun in this expansion. I have said this is an expansion that sort of needs a lot of time to develop and sort of let out and let people cook with the new cards, because even if the good cards aren't making a huge impact in Standard, they're interesting enough for us to try to cook with them in Wild and possibly make something like really fun. So I'm having fun. I hope you have fun. And if you enjoy this content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing on my YouTube channel.